I'm going to be taking another look at one of my commander decks. This one's kind of an interesting one I built just to kind of mess around with some lower powered decks out there. Some of my main decks are a little too strong and not a lot of people enjoy playing against them, so I had to build some weaker ones, but this one's kind of fun. It's based around Odric, the Master Tactician, and it's pretty much a White Weenie deck, but we'll get right in and take a look. So first off here for our mana base, this was a budget deck. I was trying to build pretty low end so it was playable but still fair for basically new players. So starting off here, we've got 31 basic planes, nothing spectacular. There's only one non-basic land in the deck. Our only non-basic land in the deck is Amira the Sky Ruin. Basically, when this is good later in the game if you have 7 or more planes, which with all the other lands in the deck being planes, you're going to build up pretty quickly. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, you can return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Let you bring back a lot of those smaller utility creatures if they get wiped off. Also taps for white, but it does come into play tapped, which kind of sucks if you get it early on. For our spell cards, we have Armored Ascension. Kind of a must-have in a mono-white deck, especially when you're running as many planes as this one is. Gives you that +1/+1 for each planes and flying, which is nice. This deck's very enchantment heavy. Builds up those little weenie creatures into some big stuff. Next one we have here is Marshal's Anthem. It has a multi-kicker on there. In the least, creatures you control get +1/+1. And when it enters the battlefield, you can return up to X creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of times it was kicked. Again, another way to bring back a lot of those smaller creatures that may have gotten knocked off the battlefield early on. Next we have White Sun Zenith. I'm a big fan of the Zenith cards. This one lets you put X 2/2 white cat creatures tokens onto the battlefield, and then it gets reshuffled into your graveyard. I love ones that get reused. Definitely nice. Next we have another enchantment. This one's Divine Favor. Enchanted creature gets +1/+3, and when it enters the battlefield you get 3 life. Next we have just basic lifelink. Enchanted creature gains lifelink. Next we have Grasp of the Necromancer. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. Next we have Sarah's Embrace. It's another enchantment. This one gives you +2/+2, flying and vigilance. Again, lots of ways to boost up our weenie cards. Next is a Hyena Umbra. I love aura enchantments. This one gives you +1/+1, first strike. It also has the Totem Armor ability, which basically if the first time the creature is going to die, you can discard this card instead of the creature. Next up we have Light of Day. Makes it so black creatures can't attack or block. Gains a lot of hate from people playing black. Next up we got another enchantment. This one's Spirit Mantle. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and protection from creatures. Next we have True Conviction. Creatures you control have double strike and lifelink. Next is the Feldar Umbra, another totem armor. This one gives you lifelink. It can also be transferred to other creatures, which is nice. Next we have Personal Sanctuary. This one's kind of interesting. During your turn, prevents all damage that would be dealt to you. So basically people can only hurt you on their own turns, not yours. Next we have a basic O-Ring, lets you exile target permanent. Ethereal Armor gives you a +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and gives a first strike. Comes in a combination with all those other enchantments in this deck. Next we have Prison Term. Enchanted creature can't attack or block and it can't use activated abilities. Very similar to a Rest, except this one can be moved to other targets when they enter the battlefield. Next we have 3 Dreams. Lets you search your library for up to 3 aura cards with different names, reveal them, and then put them in your hand. Conqueror's Pledge, which has a kicker, lets you put 6 1/1 creatures, core soldiers onto the battlefield. If you kick it, you get 12 instead. Sigil of the Empty Throne is an enchantment that lets you get a 4/4 white angel creature every time you cast an enchantment. Very nice in such an enchantment heavy deck. Next we have the Stratusky. This one lets you look through your library for a land card and then exile it, and then equipped creature gets +1/+1 for every land on the battlefield with the same name. Basically it becomes the second Armored Ascension in this deck. Next we have Bonds of Faith. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 if it's human, otherwise it can't attack or block. Boosts up your own human creatures, or you can use it to stop a opposing creature. Next we have Gift of Immortality. When the enchanted creature dies, you return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, and then return Gift of Immortality to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next step. Pretty much makes one of your creatures mostly indestructible. There are ways around it, but it becomes a really annoying combo. Next we have Stony Silence. Activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. I think there's only one artifact in this whole deck, so it doesn't hurt you, but it really annoys other people, especially ones that are running like equipment heavy decks, because they can't use the ability to equip any of those artifacts. Next we have Increasing Devotion. Put 5 1/1 white humans onto the battlefield. If it was cast from your graveyard, you can put 10 in there. Has a flashback cost, so in the end you can actually get 15 out of it, which is really nice. Next we have the Ring of Thune. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature if it's white, and it also gives them vigilance, I believe. Yep. Next we have Conversion. All mountains become basic plains. During your upkeep, pay 2 or destroy this. The 2 upkeep on it's not really bad for the ability to completely neuter a red player. Next we have Glaring Aegis, another enchantment aura. When it enters the battlefield, you tap a creature an opponent controls, and you get +1/+3 to the creature you can put it on. Next we have Oppressive Raise. Enchanted creature can't attack or block unless it pays its controller pays 3 mana. Activated abilities can't be used unless they pay an extra 3 mana. Really slows down some of those powerful cards with their weird abilities. Next we have Guildscorn Ward. Enchanted creature has protection from multicolored. This one's not so useful, especially with a lot of people playing mono or only dual colors these days, but definitely has its uses, can protect somebody from a commander. A lot of multicolored commanders out there. Next we have Hero's Resolve, +1/+5 to the target. Holy Strength, +1/+2 to the target. Intangible Virtue, all creature tokens you control get +1/+1 have vigilance. Very nice in this deck where there's a lot of things that can produce those tokens. And lastly, Myth Realized. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a lore counter on this. You can also pay mana to put a lore counter on it. Until end of turn, it becomes a monk avatar creature in addition to its other types, and the creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of counters on it. Builds up pretty quickly, especially with all the enchantments in the deck, and can turn into a pretty beastly creature for a single mana. Under our creatures, most of them are 1, 2, and 3 casting costs. There's a couple higher ones in there for the more utility pieces, but the point of this deck is to have everything being 1 and 2 casting costs so you can put out ridiculous amounts of them, even though they're weaker, and then boost them up with those enchantments. First up, we have the Precinct Captain, 2/2 with first strike, but when he deals combat damage to a player, you get a 1/1 token. Next we have Thraben Valiant. Yeah, I'm sure I said that wrong, but 2/1 Vigilance. An Azorius Arrestor. When he comes onto the battlefield, you get to detain a target creature that opponent controls. Next we have the Armament Master. Other core creatures you control get +2/+2 for each equipment attached to this guy. Kind of nice. I don't think there's enough core guys in here to really make use of it, so he's definitely one of the ones on the chopping block. Next we have the Grand Abolisher. During your turn, opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities, artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. Definitely a useful card for slowing down your opponents. Next we have the Knight of Cliffhaven. Starts out as a little 2/2, gains flying, gains vigilance, and bumps all the way up to a 4/4, which is nice. The Quarter Paladin has Battle Cry. Whenever he attacks, each other creature attacking with him gains +1/+0. Nice to boost up a lot of these weaker cards. He's one of our higher casting cost cards. Captain of the Watch. Gets vigilance. All other soldier creatures you gain get +1/+1 in vigilance, which there's a lot of soldiers, mostly soldiers and knights in this deck. And when he enters the battlefield, you put 3 1/1 soldier tokens with him. Part of why he costs so much, but definitely a nice one. Next we have the White Knight. First strike, protection from black, always nice. The Hero Bladefold. It's a 3/4 with Battle Cry. And whenever he attacks, you get 2 1/1 soldiers that all come onto the battlefield attacking with her, which is nice. Next we have a Crowan Skyguard, 1/1 flying with heroic, and starts out small, but he builds up pretty good. Next we have the Topin Freeblade. It's a 2/2 vigilance with renown. Next we have the Knight of Dawn, another 2/2 first strike. This one has the ability where you can give him protection of the color of your choice for 2 mana, which is nice. Have an Elite Inquisitor. First strike, Vigilance, protection from vampires, werewolves, and zombies. More anti-black love, gotta love that. Next we have the Celestial Ancient. This one comes into play with all those enchantments we have. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Really boosts a lot of these small guys up quickly. Next we got Leonin, yeah, I can never say them right, Sky Hunter, which is a 2/2 with flying. Daring Skyjack, which is a 3/1 with Battalion, which basically if he attacks with at least 2 other people, they gain flying till the end, or he gains flying till the end of the turn. Next we have Basilica Guards. It's a 1/4 defender with Extort, which is kind of nice. Next we have a Caravan Escort. Starts out as a little 1/1, builds all the way up to a 5/5 first strike though, which is nice. Next we have the Knight of Pilgrim's Road. It's 3/2 Renown. Next we have a Phantom General. It's a 2/3, but the ability that gives all your tokens a +1/+1, and again there's lots of ways to generate tokens in here. Spectral Rider, it's a 2/2 with Intimidate. Next we have a Soltari Lancer. A Shadow, which you don't see a lot of anymore, and also gains first strike when attacking. Next we have the Hazda Snare Squad. When they attack, you can pay 1 mana, and if you do, you can tap a target creature your opponent controls. Next we have a Kibera Vindicator. It's another level up. Starts out as a 2/4, builds all the way up to a 4/8, and can give other people +2/+2, which is nice. Next we have the Icarl Outrider. It's a 1/2, builds all the way up to a 3/10 with Vigilance. Then we have a Elite Skirmisher, 3/1 Heroic. An Auramancer, who plays off all those enchantment cards we have. When he enters the battlefield, you can return a target enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. Next we have Attendant Knight. It's a first strike, 2/2, and when he enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 white soldier token. A Nyxborn Shieldmate, to also be used as an enchantment with the Bestow ability. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2, or it can be a 1/2. Skyhunter Prowler. It's a flying vigilance 1/3. Crusader of Odric. This one gets a power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control. Play it after you play a bunch of those token generating cards, like the one that gives you 10 guys. Suddenly it becomes a lot more entertaining. And the Knight Exemplar. It's a first strike. Other knight creatures you control get +1/+1 and become indestructible. And then we have our commander, Odric, Master Tactician, who gets a first strike, 3/4, and if he attacks with at least 3 other creatures, you get to choose how your opponents defend. Throw in 3/1/1 token creatures, knowing they're going to die. Do whatever you want, but choose not to block. Do lethal commander damage with a couple nice enchantments on them, and that's all he wrote on that. It's an interesting, fun little deck. I did realize while going through this I had one card that was in here twice, so I got to find a replacement and get that fixed, but there you go. Leave me a note in the comments, tell me what you think. You can check out my deck list on Tapped Out and make suggestions, see what other cards I'd like to add to it but don't have right now, or things that I'm contemplating swapping in and out. And we'll see you in the next video.